every Muslim on earth believes in the Sharia of Allah. Every Muslim on earth believes that democracy is evil and Sharia is the good. Some Muslims, they say, we could use the evil of democracy against democracy. So break a democracy from within.
I got to keep it all the way real with y'all. And I know that some of y'all going to be triggered. You're not going to like the next words that are going to come up out of my mouth, but it's got to be said. The reason we are here, the reason we find ourselves not just in the Western world with this Islamic invasion, but now here in the United States, is our fault. We did this to ourselves. Now, of course, you have the folks in New York who actively voted for Islam to invade them. I mean, willfully, right? As Vladimir Lenin or Stalin may have called the willful idiots. Those who are useful to the establishment, the very same ones who are going to be executed on day 2 of the administration. I'm not just talking about them. I'm talking about us as much as they played a part. See, you have the useful idiot, but then you also have the silent, oftentimes majority. Now, many of us may have heard stories here and there of what was happening overseas, over the pond. And there is a tendency to be arrogant, to be prideful. This is our fall as man, quite literally. It is the original sin, right? It's pride, or believing that we don't necessarily need God to lead us, but instead we can make our own decisions. Or arrogance, which is, that could never happen to me. Self-righteousness, maybe. Nah, I can't see it. Not America. Well, guess what, folks? We are now in a place where not only has Islam made its way into the United States, but check this out. NYPD. Yeah. The same law enforcement department that would likely penalize you for having a cross out on your desk, or God forbid you wearing a cross on your chest outwardly, expressing your faith. That same NYPD is now putting on a show for quote unquote National Hijab Day. Now, once again, we may say to ourselves, well, that's New York. New York has lost their ever-living minds. New York is Gotham City, Sin City. There is no God in New York. And to that I say you're absolutely right. However, even though there are a multitude of people who consider themselves as Christ followers, Christians, believers in the Bible at some extent, we have allowed ourselves to be silent. We've allowed ourselves to be on the sideline. And I'm as guilty of this as anybody else. You know, before I started speaking on this and reporting on it and doing deeper dives into it, I sort of thought it wasn't my problem. Even when October 7th happened, it's like, well, that's over there, right? Sure, I know it's the same jihadist. And yeah, I kind of know a little bit about ISIS and Hamas. Not really, but I'm sure they're the same as ISIS and Al-Qaeda. But those are isolated incidences. I mean, sure, since September the 11th, 2021, there have been more than 50,000 terror attacks from this very specific ideology. But, I can't be bothered. I got ho-hos to take down. You understand me? I got a row of Oreos that got my name on them. I got things that I'm occupying myself with that are far more important than whatever's going on there. And guess what? That has now become my problem. Now, I don't know how up to speed y'all may be at this current moment as far as, the outcome of these last elections, not 2024. I'm talking about 2025, the elections that brought in Lord Zoran Mamdani, the new crowned king of communism in New York. But just take a look at this.
Did you guys know that there were 38 Muslims that got elected?
38. Just in case somebody may have missed that. 38. Now, I can't play the music in the background. It is copywritten, but let's just go ahead and let this play out. So we have Lieutenant Governor in Virginia. Virginia's just doing one heck of a job. They're a close, maybe second or third behind California and Minnesota at this point. New York is in a space of its own. Let's see. We have, Virginia, once again, House of Delegates. Virginia, House of Delegates. Wow. Would you look at that? New Jersey, who would have thunk it? There we have Lord Zoran at number 5. We have Abdul Hamid. What is that? Mayor of Dearborn, once again. But of course, let's see. Mayor of Dearborn Heights. Okay. Mayor College Park. And that's what? That's Maryland? Wow. All right. Maryland, we have New Jersey, we have Dearborn once again, Dearborn again and again. Let's let that scroll by. Get us a little fresh list. Maybe we'll get somebody else in here. Okay, Minnesota. There we go. Minnesota once again. And Minnesota. There we go. Minnesota. Who would have thunk it? What is this? Patterson City. I'm guessing. Yep. New Jersey, of course. Washington. Ohio. Wow, you guys find yourselves in the mix. Ohio, New Jersey, Ohio. Okay, you guys get the point. They're here. They're already here. And they're doing exactly what they told us that they would do. Now, I don't say this to create greater fear. That's not even necessary. I don't need to do anything in order to trigger that. Most people are already in a terrified state. Now, with the understanding that this is spiritual, if you do understand just even the bare bones of biblical prophecy and where all of this is going, there is a high likelihood that Islam is going to be carrying out a lot of the mentioned beheadings and persecution of Christians. That the beast system, as it's referred to, or the Antichrist system, is likely going to use Islam as its own willful idiot. However, I believe that the United States did not have to get to this point, right? God's word is going to be fulfilled regardless, but we didn't have to be a part of this in the same extent that we're seeing over the pond with our brothers and sisters in Europe. It didn't have to happen this way. We had warning after warning, even a warning on our own grounds. It was more than a warning. It was the actual thing. This was not a drill, as they say. This was the real deal. Thousands of mothers and fathers, somebody's children and grandchildren, whose lives were taken on September the 11th, 2001. If I said 2021, my brain is landlocked in the 2020s. 2001. We got to see what jihad looked like, and instead what we have done is we have obsessed ourselves with conspiracy theories. Not saying that there is not truth to many conspiracy theories that we have heard thus far, but what I'm saying is this. When you place the blame other than where it's supposed to be, you will miss out on the actual enemy. Hear me and hear me well. When you are focused on the Jews, right? Because that is the running conspiracy that, well, technically September 11th only happened because the Jews. Here's the thing. Outside of your conspiracy theory, in reality, we find ourselves with all but none of the terror attacks that have taken place since 2001 coming from Jews or Christians or Druze or likely any other religious group. What we do find is that tens of thousands of terror attacks have happened at the hands of jihadists who are Muslims. Now, I do want to make this clear. Islam is not a race. It is not a skin color. It is not an ethnicity. It is a colonizing, enslaving, strong-armed, iron-fisted, hate-filled ideology that looks to make its way into every single sector of life, not just in your religious spaces and places, but into your politics. It makes its way into your social and economic spaces. It makes its way into your day in and day out life. This is why it has its own law in place. And this law is necessary in order to fulfill the ideology itself. Now, they're going to have us believe that we're racist if we say anything against an ideology. Guess what? Islam is not a race. Now, it does have a tendency to find quote unquote black and brown people and to colonize them and to force them by the sword to convert, to coerce and manipulate, to torture and butcher in order to flip people. But outside of that, no, it has no race. It doesn't. It just so happens to have a false prophet who happens to have been if he existed to begin with, a quote unquote brown man who pushed this ideology. And now they're using the very same identity politics to make sure that we remain silent in the same way that let these leftists, these radical extremist Marxists make their way into every part of our society because we're afraid to lose our jobs. We're afraid of what they're going to do to our livelihoods. We're afraid of, if we're going to get doxxed. And I get it. These are real threats. This is real life, but we were cowardice in the midst of that, including myself. There were times that I did not stand up and say what the truth was in the moment that the truth needed to be articulated. And I let that moment turn into something else. I let that person go on and continue to perpetuate a lie. And I had to say to myself, no more. And so we have to see it now, because if we don't, and we also don't understand where this is coming from, because, oh, yes, we got time today. We've definitely got time today. We've got time for the problem. We've got time for the reality and the severity of the problem. And we have time for the solution. But for right now, I want to get into a little segment I like to title Useful or Willful Idiots.
I can possibly follow a religion that's homophobic and transphobic, and I deleted the question and blocked the person really quickly because I was like, I'm not dealing with this. And then I decided that I actually did want to answer the question. So in simple terms, there is a saying that says Islam is perfect, people are not, and that is the answer. Anytime you're questioning something, Islam is perfect, people are not. If you
So just a little refresher. This is a quote unquote trans Muslim. Just go ahead and continue.
talk to queer Muslims from the Middle East, if you look into Islamic history, if you look into Islamic poetry, you will find that historically queerness has been accepted. There was a person who was born male that the Prophet knew, who was granted access to women's spaces because he did not feel any sexual desire and because he did not feel like a man or a woman. So what we would probably describe now as non-binary and asexual.
Okay, this is probably one of the best pieces of PR we could get on our side of the conversation here. Did this dude metamorphosizing Muslim, did they just say that Muhammad was non-binary? That's good. That's actually good. I'm sorry. Like, this is the little bit of light before we get to the true light at the end of the tunnel. Okay. All right. Yeah, this is good. So the Prophet Muhammad was likely non-binary. He was probably even transitioning. But of course, that was after he took a 6-year-old to be his lawfully according to his law, right? Because these are his statutes. This was his revelation. This was what was revealed unto him, that it was okay for him to take that little 6-year-old. And then, to be fair, he consummated the relationship or the marriage at 9. So, we got to give him that, right? The guy at least was willing to wait it out. The useful idiots. Who are they? Most obviously, they're the leftists. The radical, extremist leftists. A lot of our brothers and sisters, literally, brother, yours, maybe a sister. Hopefully not a parent, but there's parents out there too. Senior citizens for Kamala Harris. There is, of course, our little brothers and little sisters, sons and daughters, the ones who went off to college campuses, got indoctrinated, and came back talking about Muhammad is the truth. Therefore, I am non-binary. Yeah, these individuals have been the most obvious perpetuators and pushers of this invasion. However, they're not alone. And as a matter of fact, because we allowed our society to slip, because we allowed our society to be given over to a godless culture, all of us here in the West who once called on God, once understood that God was at the foundation, at the core of all things. And some folks out there, they don't like to hear that. Well, no, it was Western ideals. It was Judeo-Christian values in America. Real straightforward. When you saw pictures of George Washington on his knees praying, he was not praying to Allah, and he was not praying to Hitler. I know Hitler didn't exist, but the Groypers, right? Just a little message for the Groypers. He was not praying to the Lord of Mein Kampf. No, he was praying to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He was praying to the true living God. He was praying to his Lord Jesus Christ. There was a time in the Western world when we recognized at scale who the ultimate authority was. Our laws were based upon his laws. Not perfect, because we are still mankind in our fallen state, and we all need a redeemer. All of us. But at the very least, we were trying. At the very least. So we had laws that today are considered to be intolerant. Now, remember that very first clip I played for y'all in the very beginning of this video, right? They will use our weakness against us. They will use our quote unquote democracy. Our liberal ways will be used against us because there is no foundation. There is no strong base for us anymore. Again, God was that foundation. So what do we fall upon? His word. What does he say about things? Okay, why is it that we don't allow for children to be limited in the womb at scale that we've never seen throughout all of antiquity, all of history? Why? Simple answer for that is because God said so. God created life. God calls life sacred. God is the author of life. So we don't get to erase the chapters that he writes. Okay, that's God's law. But that's intolerant. But what about my career? That's God's law. Now you can break God's law, and then that at least is now the law of the land, so there's consequences. Well, once the land stopped respecting God's law, guess what happens? You get away with your sin and live in that sin, and you get to justify it because, well, I'm not breaking a law. As a matter of fact, it's now a right to do exactly that. It's not a right to take a life that doesn't even belong to you. It is now your right to chop off your manhood and to pretend that you're a woman when God has said that he has made he, her, not they, them. Well, there is a them in there, but it's referring to an actual collective, a group, right? Man and woman. And they have their specific roles in this reality, which is God's reality. And he is the arbiter of truth. There's only truth because God exists. That's why evil is still evil. The same person who will eliminate the child in the womb or stand up for the quote unquote right for others to do so, that same person, I guarantee you, will find it problematic if children are being slaughtered in mass who are outside of the womb. If they heard of 60 million babies being slaughtered outside, maybe even 3-day, 4, 5, 6-day olds, they would find that problematic. Yet, if you told them, well, they were still in the womb, those very same people would see that as okay. This is the sort of culture that has led us to be invaded by a stronger God, not than the true living God, but than the one that we have replaced the true living God with. We have replaced God with what? With leisure, modern comforts. Not saying there's anything wrong with that. We've traded God in for Cheetos in the belly button, watching Scandal. If that's you watching Scandal, you got convicted all by yourself with the Cheetos in your waistband. Okay? Cheeto dust on your fingers. And just because you got Pringles and you can't see it on your fingers doesn't mean it's not the same effect. It's not real food. Take that from a former Pringle addict. It's not real food. We have become obsessive about all of the wrong things. We have placed our focus anywhere other than God's focus. And so we find ourselves in a place where these kids, look, they're offering their God up to them. They're in the streets doing the dawah. They're in there preaching that message. Now, it is a doctrine of devils. Muhammad is a false prophet. He is a deceiver and a liar. But, I mean, if the kids ain't got any other choice, we're not telling about Christ. We're not sharing the gospel with them. We don't even know the gospel, right? Oh yeah, God loves the world. The end. Back to mimosas. Of course, that's why I said in the very beginning, we are as much to blame for this as anybody else. If the church, if God's people, and I'm not talking about a building, the church, I'm talking about, as Christ will refer to, his church, right? His own, those who are believers, the body. If we were to stand without flinching on what we believe, our values and our principles, which are rooted in God, the real, true, living God, instead of allowing culture to dictate and determine, maybe it's because we want our ears tickled, right? We want to be told messages that we want to hear instead of the actual word. We want to get away with the wrong that we want to get away with, so we're not able to speak about any of the wrong that is taking place around us. Maybe that's what it is. But then we get mad when Islam has made its way in. And I just say, of course. Look, if my God is this device right here, this device is lifeless. Outside of me turning it on and losing myself in endless scrolling, there's no life in this. But they're over there worshiping powerful demons. None is more powerful than Jesus Christ, who's been given authority over all things. But if you ain't got Jesus in the equation, then, this is your God. Their God is far more powerful than yours. Just because I say it's a false God doesn't mean there's nothing behind that deity. There is very much demonic spirits. Likely the Prince of Persia of old is the one that is still over this religion. The type of principality so powerful that Gabriel had to call for help. He had to call in Michael. He said, brother, sorry, Daniel, I got caught up. I was detained by the Prince of Persia. That very same spirit right there, I'm not saying the exact one, right? This is just my own projection, but there are principalities, authorities, powers in high places, wicked powers in high places. And you know evil once you have delved into this subject matter. You know evil when you've delved into jihad. I had a young lady on by the name of Yada, and she is Druze, and she shared one of the most heartbreaking stories. I cried on camera. It is so grotesque and gruesome, and now I've got footage that is even worse than that. I can't show this type of stuff on any platform here. I'm going to be doing my best to send it up to Capitol Hill, and hopefully we can push it all the way up, because, why are we doing business with Syria? Why are we letting in an Al-Qaeda leader who just put a suit on, still got the same beard, smells like the same exact. The beard is still smelling like falafel. You understand me? The beard is still, it's the same scent from the meal he had back then when he was terrorizing that he has right now as he steps into our Oval Office. What's going on, President? I know deal making is important, but we cannot negotiate with terrorists, as old man Reagan once said. But the willful idiots. Now I want to show y'all something because this goes on and on. So I wanted to play this video out, but I know most of our audience does not speak French and there was no subtitles. So I'm going to go ahead and just read out what was happening. So there's a alphabet influencer, L's, the G's, the B's, the T's, the Q's, and all of these. Was actually, it's a dude pretending to be a chick. An influencer was beaten by a group of Islamists in Brussels. It's like saying water's wet. Anyway, Belgium, in Brussels, Belgium, the influencer is shocked, saying, "I have always supported Palestine. I don't understand why they'd attack me. I always supported Stalin. I don't know why he would get rid of me. I thought he was going to spare me. I always supported the little mustache man. I didn't know he was going to come for me too. As a matter of fact, I helped to turn in some of my brothers and sisters. Sure, he would spare me. No, he wouldn't spare you because he's a psychopath. He is of his father, the devil, who was a murderer from the beginning. So that is what he will do. He was a liar and the father of lies. There is no truth in him. Of course, he's going to lie. But Islam, they said that this was the religion of peace. They lied. It's called taqiyya. Look it up. They lied. And they're allowed to lie. According to their doctrine, so long as it is pushing their agenda, they can lie directly to your face. They will tell you whatever you want to hear until they solidify themselves, until they outpopulate you, and then they'll get busy. Some cases, they don't even have to do that. They just have to get a seat of power and they will take that territory over. Ask the folks in northern and central Nigeria. Ask them. Ask them. Ask the folks in Soweto, in southern Syria. Ask them. I dare you to message one of them folks out there and say, hey, how peaceful is the religion of peace? But once again, when we neglect and let go of the Prince of Peace, then God's hand of protection is like this. Now, maybe on individuals and individual families, right? Because again, I'm talking about the church. I'm talking about not the body necessarily, but those who say, yeah, I'm Christian. Why? Well, because, Jesus he's a good guy and he gives me the stuff I want. We have like a little pocket Jesus. No, this is God made flesh. We have this idea of course, the lamb, because he came first as a lamb to be slaughtered for our atonement, but he comes back as the Lion of Judah. He comes back as a king who has authority over all things. We think that this is, whenever we have even an angel showing up to an individual throughout the word, and when you have people with real accounts, you can see the terror on them. There's majesty, there's beauty, but there's terror, and that's a messenger, a worker of God. Imagine God's presence. They say that folks in the end are going to be hiding in the hills and in the mountains, hoping that the rocks crush their heads because they have such great fear for the mere presence of God. God is the creator, infinite. You don't want to be on the other side of that equation because we make ourselves enemies of God when we do not align with his reality, his truth, his way, his will. When you say my will be done, this is what you get. This is the best of what you're going to get. It's about to get so much worse y'all cannot fathom. Now, the next section I have here is to do with the politics of it all because, yes, Islam is inherently a multifaceted ideology. It makes its way into every single sector of our lives. More specifically in the political arena. Watch this. Not that.
I mean, Hezbollah, bombed the embassy in Beirut, and including many Americans. So I just feel it's quite inappropriate.
You are an Islamophobe, and although you live here, I want you to know, as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of the city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of the city, because you are not somebody who believes in coexistence.
There is an Islamic and
Oh, we're going to get to this right here. Y'all going to have a good time. Because, see, we could look at the leftists. We can go all day long about how they let this in, the useful and willful idiots, libtards, and of course, we can do that all day. But we also got to check our own quote-unquote supposed side about this very same matter here. So what y'all saw right there is the current sitting mayor of Dearborn, Michigan. Dearborn is having a little bit of a Islamic, what's the opposite of revival? Death? Dying, I guess it would, because revivals to, bring back to life. So, yeah, we'll say it's having a little bit of a death. It is dying at the altar of Allah. And now you have a mayor who will sit up there and tell one of his own constituents, one of his own citizens, per se, that he can't wait for him to get out of there because this man was willing to tell the truth about terror organizations. This man delivered a very calm, straightforward message. Hezbollah is doing this, right? Isn't that a problem? And the response is that he is an Islamophobe, which again is a tactic. It's a leftist Marxist tactic that they're using. They have mastered the left's game. I have to give them that. They have picked it up quite fast because with the free Palestine, which is, as the prime minister, Bibi himself says, that is the new Heil Hitler. And yes, it is. Free Palestine. What is that about? It's about eradication of a people group based upon their ethnicity. Go figure. Or ethnicity/religion. Palestinians, so-called Palestinians, if there were such a thing, Gazans, former Jordanians and Egyptians, etc. These individuals here who claim to be Palestinians have made themselves the victim. So watch this. This is how good the propaganda is. Or I guess how easily deceived we are when we're in darkness as opposed to in light. They said after 12 to 1,400 Israelis were massacred, butchered, R-worded. Can't say that word, but you catch what I'm throwing. Had the most atrocious, disgusting stuff happen to them in a single day's attack in an attempt to completely wipe out all Jews. It's always the end goal. It's always the goal. It never deviates. It never changes. Okay? The jihadist goal is simple when it comes to the Jews, as it is with the Druze or the Christians or whoever else is not willing to submit. And even some, if you do submit, if you're Jewish, I'm pretty sure you can bow down and say, no, please, and they will still take you out because it is simply a fixation on eradicating you based on what you are as opposed to what you claim. But anyway, back to the point at hand. These people attempted a genocide and then claimed to be getting genocided. It's an absolute cinema, like that meme with Scorsese. Absolute cinema right there. Pure Pallywood. That's some A-grade propaganda right there. But that's what Marx told him to do, right? They mastered that, is in war or in times of conflict, accuse your adversary of doing the thing that you're doing in order to create confusion. That's Karl Marx. Direct quote. And for some reason, we feel as if we are untouchable. Look, the only reason we were ever untouchable, the only reason we were blessed as a nation, the only reason things are working out in the way that they were is because of God's involvement. And now you see a godless society, you see what comes with it. And we're getting a refresher course for our good. Chastisement comes to the child. It is a necessary correction for the child, but I can't just, I can't just stick it on the leftists. We got this going on our side as much as anything else. So I'm gonna fast forward this. I've linked the entire video below, but where it really gets saucy is right here.
Sharia law Muslim concern I see on X.
Oh no, my constituents talk about the same problems that plague you and everyone on this call. I've never been to a town hall. I've never been asked about Sharia law at a town hall. I just haven't. I will tell you, I do think there's a paid social media influencer campaign going on X. If you want Islam and Sharia law, you stay over there in the Middle East. You stay there and go to Mecca and do all your thing. And you know what? You can have a whole bunch of wives or goats or sheep or whatever you want. You stay over there. But in America, see, we made it this great, great country. We don't want it messed up. But I think it's a lot mostly on X, and I think it is paid, and it's probably coming from Israel or AIPAC donors.
I don't think that woman has gone through a single full moment. Now, I'll give a moment like 45 seconds, maybe to like a minute and a half tops. For some of us, like 7 seconds, right? It's like attention span. I don't think she's had a full processed thought without it ending with the Jews, AIPAC, or Jewish donors. It's just one and the same thing. It's just basically the Jews. I don't think it's ever happened. At least not since 2020 or 2018, right? With the Jewish space laser situation, starting fires in California in order to, the whole thing. I don't think that since that time, likely beforehand, but since that time, there's not been a full 45-second sequence where it wasn't the Jews, the Jews, the Jews. You know what I mean? That's just me. That's what I get. But anyway, here we have MTG, who has been officially coined by DJT as Marjorie Trader Green. Now, some are saying that Laura Loomer actually created this nickname, so I'm going to give credit where credit is due if that's the case. She's been right about this woman and a lot of folks for a long time. Hater or lover, she's been right. Now, MTG is somebody who is in the same category as a Taliban, Carlson, etc. They will do and say whatever is necessary to get what they want. Some want money, some want the power, some want it all, right? When we have Candace Qatari Owens or Khomeini Owens, usually that individual, the one who is simping for Hamas in the times that she is. Right now, she has been single-minded and just focused on the Jews. But there were times when, she was calling out a pretend genocide and things of that nature. Every now and then it will slip in. These individuals are after pure influence, power. It's all about power. Then you have the MTGs who want the money and the power, baby. Mostly the money. It's mostly the money, right? $22 to $23 million of profit made through white-collar crime, i.e. yours and my taxpayer dollars being used for the sake of throwing into the market. And once you know it, she has quite a bit of stock in Palantir. It'll be interesting little find for some of y'all who like to do your deep dives. But anyway, point being, we have it going on both sides. They like to talk about how America's been sold to Israel. America's been sold to Israel. 48 elected officials in a single day that are Muslim. 48 or 46 to 48. Actually, let me get the number right now. So she had 34 of them on here. But I know that Brigitte, not that Brigitte. I know that Brigitte had an official number at like 48, I believe. Let me see if I can find this real quick. If I saved it, okay, beautiful. It's late. Okay, 42. It's 42 Muslim candidates backed by terror-linked networks and organizations. Go figure. Go figure. You know what? Let's go ahead and just check this video out. Why not? We're here already, right? We got time today. We have got time today.
While all eyes were focused on New York and Mamdani, 42 Muslim candidates backed by terror-linked network have seized key offices across America, proving that the Muslim Brotherhood plan to infiltrate and destroy America from within is now a reality. 76 Muslims ran for office nationwide. 42 won. 3 races still pending. The 42 Muslim officials now occupy positions in some of the most influential jurisdictions in the country, from New York's mayor office to Virginia's executive branch, from Michigan's heartland to local school boards. The newly elected officials span at least 9 states: New York, Virginia, Michigan, New Jersey, Maryland, Washington, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. The list includes 6 mayors, 4 state legislatures, 20 city councils and commissioners, 6
Oh, I have to say something here. Thank you, Brigitte. Thank you so much, as per usual. Council members matter. Local politics is where the movers and the shakers are. And I'm not saying our president, our federal government doesn't have power. That's nonsense. There's ultimate authority on things that are ultimate. But when it comes to our day in, day out lives, the impact of a governor, the impact of a mayor, the impact of council people in your town, in your jurisdiction, cannot be underestimated. And that's where they start. They build from there, and then the people that they get into those seats to replace them are like themselves. They duplicate themselves, and then they get into higher positions. Then they start to scratch each other's back. They create a network. I'm telling y'all right now that this is exactly how they're playing it. How do I know? Because they told us. They told us this. That's why I played the first clip at the very beginning. They told us that they're going to use our democracy. I mean, technically we are a republic, but they're going to use our politics against us.
En kijk tussen je voeten. Ja? Goed zo, blijf je maar zo, blijf je zo. Je gaat even koffie drinken.
Dat doe ik.
Nee, we gaan weer opstaan. Dan gaan we staan. Nou, doe dat maar. Ja, en de elleboog van de grond af. En handen dicht bij de oren. Op de grond dan, hè. Onder de oren. Mijn oren zijn veel dichterbij, hoor. Jullie hebben het zo. Jullie oren zijn niet daar. Mijn oren zijn hier. Ja, en op de grond. Goed zo.
Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Now, if you'd like to stay around, make sure to click that little subscribe button down there, or you can show some love by going to the description below and clicking on the button titled Buy Me a Coffee. Leave a little something there, or click on the Cash App. Leave a little something here. Till the next time, peace.
I've been up for hours, I've been up for days, you. Staring at the ceiling, I've been counting strays, you. I've been in my feelings, I've been out of mind. I've been getting visions of the other kind. Yeah, I've been up for weeks. I'm in the count of blessings over count of sheep. I can never be the type to limit when it comes to me. I used to be the pleaser for the people.